So please sit as formally or as somewhat more comfortably as you wish, without sprawling. So tonight, as the first evening of this session, the matter at hand is, of course, this mysterious, tiny matter, vast implications. It takes up no space at all, it is barely even a word. And the matter at hand is mu, the subtle and mysterious nature of what this is, who this is, where we find ourselves. We can, of course, live as though it's very ordinary, cut and dried, worked out. We have a serviceable account of it all. Or, and you're here because you have chosen differently, we can live in the presence of the mystery of it. This does not mean turning it into a mystery, it is recognizing its mysterious, subtle quality and offering ourselves to that as the subtle, mysterious quality that we are. So it is, of course, Mu is the first evening of session, the first talk, because it is the gateway to waking up as no self, to waking up to the reality of no self. It is not a new part of yourself. It is the original, most natural, most fundamental matter. And it is alive. It's alive. As alive as everything that we can possibly encounter. Equally alive, sharing the same it's alive quality. So many of you know the case from many other sessions, but I'll give it to you again. It is very simple. A monk asked Jiao, old, wondrous Jiao, who was a shining light, a magnificent, ancient character, literally ancient. He was somewhere between 80 and 120 years old when he would have spoken these words. He was asked by a monk, does a dog have Buddha nature or not? And Jiao responded, on this occasion, with this word that turns all of us back upon ourselves. Mu, he said. He held up, in a sense, the dark mirror of is not, does not have, does not have. Mu, does not. The question is about self-nature. Here is the place to walk in. It is this one word, which is something like not, no, non, un. And its implication, of course, is to take away both having and not having with complete equality. You cannot have Buddha nature. You certainly cannot not have Buddha nature. So what is it to have? This monk clearly wants to have access to Buddha nature. Even that wanting is already a strange kind of misdirection. How can you want to have what you are? And yet you know the ache in your own heart, that there is a gap. There is a kind of gap of anguish. Here, but not quite completely here and accountable. Here, but not quite completely taking part fully. Here, but my heart is slightly left behind. those subtle forms of anguish. So, so it's no wonder that Mu is known as the gateless gate. How can there be a barrier when the very word says no barrier? So it is often translated as no barrier. There is no barrier here. How strange that we have to, in a way, pit our heart against our own intransigence in this matter. You can safely leave the dog out of contention. I think you can safely say you'll never meet a dog unsure of self-nature. So the dog was a kind of straw dog, a case for an argument to get going, or a case for a bargain to be struck if possible. That monk wanted to know instructions, pointers. How do you wake up this self-nature to your own recognition, your own flood of recognition, self-recognition at last? So Teisho responded exactly to the point of that question, the true question. He said, the way in is no, mu, un, not, is not, does not, have. In other words, everything you might try to put upon this matter does not stick. Every limiting attempt of the mind to capture and hold it and have it does a terrible injustice to the nature, the mysterious nature of where we are and what this is. It does not conform to the mind that would split the universe up. It does not conform to the dividing impulse of human beings. It is the undivided. You are the undivided. That's the challenge, the invitation, the challenge, the offer of this one word, mu. You cannot bargain with it. You can't do a damn thing with it. The fact that it frustrates every attempt to grasp it with the usual way that the mind sets out to grasp things is its great virtue. To each of them it says, no, not that way. Excuse me. And yet at the same time you wouldn't, and the monk wouldn't, be imploring the teacher, old Teisho, for a response in this matter, unless he or any one of you had not noticed that this is a deep matter, a deeply somehow familiar, I'll try that word again, familiar matter, something that is intimately familiar to you at some level of your being. Otherwise you would not feel the estrangement from that completeness, the complete being here and simply being. And the ability to know that as inarguable, to be able to come from that inarguable knowing, which you must enter through the gate of not knowing. Mu is the gate where you shed your knowings bit by bit by bit. You walk through without breeches, a rich kid without breeches. And Teisho pointed on one occasion to this sort of deep familiarity that already exists when he said, and he wasn't talking about working with mu directly, but here is one of his comments once. He said, it is as though you come across a secret word and you don't know the meaning, but you recognize the handwriting. So this secret word which is somehow written in your handwriting and you can't tell the meaning of it, and yet you hunger to know that fully for yourself. You might think the secret word is this tiny, almost not a word at all, mu. Or in Chinese, wu, W-U. Same word transliterated. And the fact that you cannot know, you don't know the meaning, points to the fact that this is already subtle and mysterious matter. It has the quality of the Japanese word, Sino-Japanese word, myo, subtle and mysterious. And indeed, the very word mu happens just by sheer coincidence to share something in common with the root word behind our English word mystery. It comes from a Greek root word, muon, which means mystery and has the connotation also of mute. Mute comes from the same root word as mystery. And in the old Eleusinian mysteries, Greek Eleusinian mysteries tradition, people who pass through a kind of initiation process into these mysteries happened in a room where there were images on the wall and things happened in that room, but literally no one can say what the process of going through the Eleusinian mysteries was, because everybody was sworn to secrecy at the end of that process. Their lips were muted, and they have stayed muted, and the mysteries have remained mysteries. There's something about that is extremely unusual in human history and somehow valuable. So this secret word, is it mu? Or is it actually you, yourself? Are you the secret word, written in your own handwriting, that you cannot yet know the meaning? Have not realized or recognized? Well, if you're lucky enough, you do stumble on the fact that you cannot find the meaning of yourself. You cannot find, this is not the same as feeling lost on dark paths of ignorance, wandering through the six worlds. It's not about feeling that you, it's more like the feeling that you cannot find the beginning or the end of yourself. Have a look. Where did you come from? Where does this moment of your being come from? Can you truly sort that out and say, there it is, there's the source, there's the moment, the ignition point, the start? We come, all of us, covered in a beautiful kind of hidden quality. Everything has a kind of secret word about it. Every now and then, the inability to touch the secret word falls away. It's as though you find the limitlessness itself as yourself. There is no way to go and find that limit or any kind of lack in who this is, what this is, if you really go looking. And this is a beautiful thing, to be confounded in your own search for something that you can have in the realm of who is this? What is this? What Jiao is so generously offering is there is no having, there is no clinging, there is no limiting of this matter. But even while it is confounding, as in literally taking away your ability to proceed, at the same time you can't possibly deny that you somehow recognize this deeply. Something here knows you. In fact, it's sometimes said, Mu knows you better than you know yourself. Far, far better. More originally than you can ever know yourself. So if Mu is written in the most personal, unmistakable handwriting. The handwriting, of course, in a sense, is also catching sight. We catch sight of our own handwriting to see the way in which we write ourselves out of this intimacy with tiny moves of the mind that reject some aspect of being here. Catching yourself in the act of these small acts of small self-creation, creation of the self that I guess you could say we make ourselves up with moment by moment. All our own work. So, to that extent, it's like finding or discovering yourself in the act of making yourself up. On the other hand, it's like discovering yourself in an extraordinary intimacy that has been yours from the moment you became conscious. Both these are not two things. Mu does not leave out our endless errors of omission or commission. Mu leaves nothing out because there is no outside to Mu. How can you have what is so completely the case of where we find ourselves? So this leaves us in a strange position. Sometimes it's imaged, the image is given of you find yourself in front of iron cliffs. There is not a single handhold on the cliff, and you must somehow climb the cliff. How do you climb the cliff of this one word, Mu? How do you work with it? Well, you could always talk yourself out of even trying if you go too far down that image. But take it from a different point of view. This secret word that Zhao Zhou is speaking about is actually in front of you in everything you see, hear, taste, touch, smell, feel, think. Even that might present a kind of confounding. If it's so immediately apparent all the time, why do we even need to go and try to unveil ourselves in its presence? Well, letting yourself be confronted is good. There's a famous moment when an emperor was extremely confronted by this matter. This was Emperor Wu Liang, who was famous in his time, the time of Bodhidharma, famous for having commissioned hundreds of temples, poured the riches of the empire, the realm of which he was in command, the southern part of China, into libraries, translation institutions to translate the sutras, into temples, into monasteries. He himself liked to sort of pretend to be a monk from time to time. He got tired of being an emperor, and he had a secret tunnel between the palace and a nearby little kind of monastic outfit, and he would go through the tunnel and pop up the other side and pretend to be the gardener. And he would spend a bit of time in temple life, in monastic life, in a way like we are having a taste of here.
Excuse me.
And he'd have to be sort of bullied back into being the emperor.
Sorry. Oh, I just got a terrible cramp.
Cool.
I'm not there. I can sit on that chair. Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
So people would have to come and sort of bully him back into being the boring old emperor again. He had a great, genuine love of the Dharma. You okay, Susan?
No, you have to stand up. So.
Okay. Yeah. Do whatever you need to do. Anyway, so Emperor Wu became aware of Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma had travelled by sea into all the way around from India into this southern part of China. And this was about a 2 or 3 year journey, it is said. He himself, by the way, came from a royal household. So he was a rich kid and luckily had no breeches, as it turned out. So he arrived, and Emperor Wu was deeply impressed. He's this very interesting person coming from India, bearing the seeds of Dharma in a form that had grabbed people's attention. There was something about him, apart from the fact that he had a big red beard, and Chinese people as a whole didn't have big red beards, so that was already interesting. He's known as the red-bearded barbarian. So Emperor Wu invited him before him, and they had a conversation which went on for a couple of moments and covered a bit of territory before Emperor Wu asked this question, which in a way was a little like somebody asking to be praised, because he had been a very generous donor to the cause of Buddhism. And as everybody knows, dana is known as the first highest virtue of practice, generosity, giving. After all, mu is entirely the matter of giving the self away. How generous, how more generous than that can you be? Anyway, so he's talking more about the dana of offering gifts and money in this case. So he asked, as if innocently, what is the first virtue of the holy teaching? Expecting to hear dana. And instead he heard these words, vast emptiness, nothing holy. This was very confounding for Emperor Wu. And he didn't flinch away. Luckily, at least he had the sense to think, this is very arresting matter. And so he asked another question. He said, who is this sitting before me? He actually had, in a sense, stumbled close enough to the very question we started with here, which is, you yourself are a great question, a great mystery. You let that in with this little word mu, and you proceed from there, deeper in. So Emperor Wu has noticed that the person in front of him is not just a red-bearded barbarian, nothing he can quite get his handle on at all. Who is this person in front of me? And Emperor Wu received another very surprising response, because, as you know, many of you, Bodhidharma said, I don't know. He returned the very energy of inquiry coming from Emperor Wu back completely became the mirror of it. In fact, not knowing, the intimacy of not knowing was on offer. So this vast emptiness, nothing holy. Notice that inside that nothing holy, there's also nothing profane, nothing impure, nothing unholy. There is no stamp that you can put upon it whatsoever. Vast emptiness, nothing holy. Look how that lifts the weight of holy and not holy, holy, profane, body, mind, like, dislike, male, female, mind, body, all of the ways in which we divide, like a knife right through our own hearts. We divide what we are and where we are. So it would be a mistake to miss the compassion in that moment. So it is said with remarkable understatement that the two of them could not reach an accord. They could not, the Emperor Wu could not meet this blast of, this shockwave really, of not knowing that came towards him, hit him in the heart. He didn't know what to do with it. He later on, so Bodhidharma crossed the river and travelled north. Mythologically speaking, at least, he crossed the river on a single leaf. I'm just giving you that as something to enjoy. But you'll often see him depicted that way, crossing the Yangtze River on sometimes a long leaf, but nevertheless a single leaf. And then Emperor Wu became regretful. He felt regret. He knew that he had missed a great chance. And he asked his kind of advisor, what can we do, who was that? Oh, actually, the advisor said, do you yet know who that person was? And Emperor Wu said, no, I don't know. Now that's a very different, I don't know, to the I don't know that Bodhidharma brought into that room and into our tradition from that point on. And that left the emperor feeling concerned. I don't know. And the advisor said, well, that was the bodhisattva of compassion herself, offering you the open way. Emperor Wu, as emperors are prone to do, said, bring him back. And the advisor said, though you sent everybody in China after him, he would not come back. He doesn't come and go like that. So it is a remarkable, informative encounter. And in that I don't know, there is a great reservoir of welcome and of care that would be easy to miss if you moved too quickly. Think about how much room is made for the other in every intimate form in which it appears, in that act and practice of offering the open space of not knowing instead of the narrowed down cutting point of what you think you know. It is a compassionate act that is intimately linked with the wisdom of emptiness. It is no accident that the Heart Sutra from the heart of the Diamond Sutra, the tiny, as you could almost say, beating heart of that sutra that we chant as the Heart Sutra, is delivered by Avalokiteshvara, Kuan Yin, compassion. The wisdom is transmitted by compassion and the Buddha listens. Interesting. The wisdom of emptiness is delivered into the world by compassion. And even though every sutra is said to be a thread of discourse of the Buddha, this moment is not the words of the Buddha. It is the words of Avalokiteshvara, practicing deep, open sitting, the open state. So Bodhidharma really was bringing the wisdom of the Bodhisattva into the world with this I don't know. The undertaking of the Bodhisattva is something like to say there is no enlightenment if it is called my enlightenment. My enlightenment is not enlightenment. And so to give yourself the permission to, in a way, go all the way down through the self, right through its deepest forgetting, you come up in every being that you directly encounter. You come up in each thing. You give yourself back so completely in order to discover the self. This is the business of not knowing. This is the business of mood. We find ourselves shared and human and awake and calm, or undazzled, as Kazan puts it, and very alive. Flora Courtois is an interesting person, a woman who came from a mixed kind of Christian kind of background, but stumbled upon a series of experiences that she later confirmed with Yasutani Roshi. That's Yamada's teacher, Yamada being Robert Aitken's teacher. And she became a person who was very important in the establishing of the Los Angeles Zen Center. And she speaks of this matter of open, not knowing mind this way. At the heart of Zen practice, there is a kind of radically intimate attention. This absolutely first-hand quality of experience characterizes the beginning of our lives and, if we are not drugged, the end. No other mediates between us and the intimate aloneness of birth. No memories, no thoughts, no plans invade this pure innerness. So too in the spare simplicity of our deaths. Here, attention is reality, and reality, attention. But in the days and years of our living, somehow we lose touch with this clarity and think to possess ourselves in images, in thoughts, in dream forms of ourselves. Yet the opportunity to be restored to our original unborn condition is always immediately at hand, she says. It is as close at hand as turning back towards the mind and the ritual act of attention that we call practice. I like the fact that she speaks about birth and death as the mind, the quality, the alive edge quality here. Sometimes it's said that to sit deeply and truly is to sit on the cliff edge of birth and death with that kind of awareness. And to let in the startling fact of birth and death, cliff edge, at every moment, right, we sit on the cliff edge. To recognize that this is actually where every breath we draw is drawn, on that cliff edge. That's a kind of, little bit like the shock wave that Bodhidharma sent out to Emperor Wu. The shock wave of Vast emptiness, nothing holy. I don't know. And if you really look closely, you will find in it the virtues inside that complete giving away of the self. You'll find the virtues of the Bodhisattva. Dogen puts them very simply. He puts them like this, and one of them ties in first with the so-called first virtue of the holy teaching. He says the first virtue is giving. Giving yourself away, but giving away. Noticing that everything in this universe continually gives way. And so join that, giving. Notice how that ties in to the first great vow. The many beings are numberless. I vow to save them. I vow to wake to them. I vow to wake them. Giving. The second one for Dogen is use of loving words, which also has some connection with greed, hatred, and ignorance rise endlessly. I vow to abandon them. Loving words. The third one for Dogen is completely forgetting oneself. Dharma gates are countless. I vow to wake to them. Dharma gates are not even apparent until we forget ourselves, in the Dogen sense of letting that soften, fall away. And the fourth one for him is living by helping each other. So, linking them up, completely forgetting oneself in the business of living by helping each other, dissolving the sense of other. That's embodying the way of awakeness. So let me just touch into a couple more things that might be helpful here. One of them is it is good to be startled by the proposition that Mu presents us with this barrier that turns out to be no barrier at all. That's a kind of quite forceful presentation of that there is something really to see through here, to see through the way we make ourselves up, to see through the kind of surface we put over everything that is here. But there is actually also a quite homely, ordinary, moment-by-moment way of working with this. It's good to be startled into moving in its direction, but this is how you maintain it. It involves a kind of continuous, intimate attention and discipline that I think you could sum up just with the words, not that way. So, it's a little bit like what is sometimes called neti practice, not this, not this. It's not about rejecting anything that arises in your awareness, but it is about testing each thing against a question, something or a sense, something like this. Is this move of my mind dividing? Is it divided in its quality? And therefore, in a sense, is it congruent or not congruent with the undivided nature of what is here? So to put that very simply, there is something that we can recognize in ourselves. Jared Manley Hopkins called it the deepest freshness, deep down thing, the dearest freshness, deep down thing. Zen might call it my original self. Older than the universe, my original self. A simple word for it is the undivided. That which is undivided. Your heart knows what is undivided. Your heart continually offers itself in the direction of the undivided. So that's the guiding move. You look to see, is this thought that I'm entertaining, or is this state of mind, or this reaction arising in me, is it dividing, or is it offering the undivided? Is it touching, or is it opening in the direction of the undivided, this thought, this opinion, this view, this judgment? And if not, you simply take up the habit, the moo habit of not that way, not that way. You don't move in that direction. You don't follow that invitation. So this is really a matter of discernment, not of judgment. It is becoming more and more fine-grained in a gentle, firm act of discernment. Watching your mind, becoming skilled in recognizing how it leans forward or away instead of settling into completely being here, agreeing to be here. See how easily this lines up with the Great Way is not difficult. It just avoids preferences. So this is the quite everyday, every moment kind of practice of watching your mind and of allowing this sort of opening of the heart to quite naturally take place, because each time you decline the offer that takes you off the path, you are in a way homing. Your heart and mind are homing more and more into this state of not knowing and, or if you like, radical open intimacy. Let me just share a couple of the experiences that Flora Courtois spoke about. And it's quite reassuring to hear these experiences, I think, because it gives you some sense that much of practice is a kind of fleshing out of things that you've already recognized, already had openings towards. So I'm not going to read them all, but just a little selection. One of them was when she was 16. Minor surgery had to be performed. An ether cone was placed over my face. This was the old anesthesia. I remember having this as a child when I had my tonsils out. A sort of thing placed over your face. I fought like a demon. They held me down. Five strong men held me down. And as I breathed in deeply, a great whirling spiral of light approached from an enormous distance and at great speed. At the same time, a voice of unmistakable authority seemed to say that when the center of the spiral reached me, I would understand all things. Just as the center reached me, I blacked out. But after recovering, there remained an unforgettable conviction that what I had heard and seen was in some inexplicable way the deepest truth. So that's one stray example of the sort of intimations, powerful intimations that we can get, sometimes even in dreams or dreamlike or vision-like states, even as children. Here's another one, and this would probably be familiar to you too. Standing at the kitchen window one day and looking out at where a path wound under some maple trees, I suddenly saw the scene with a freshness and clarity I'd never seen before. Simultaneously, as though for the first time, I realized I was not only on the earth, I was an intimate part and product of it. I feel even that is still a little bit separate, an intimate part. It was as if a door had briefly opened. And some people speak about this as, for no reason at all, the great door opens. And suddenly that which is you'd ordinarily call ordinary is suddenly revealed. nothing ordinary. Nothing has ever been ordinary here. I stood there transfixed. I remember thinking, distant places, Tibet, North Africa, are extensions of right here. But the third one is the one that I think is both utterly ordinary and keeps rolling open from that point. So she talks about going home from college, back home to Detroit to spend a week with her parents. There, about 3 days later, alone in my room, sitting quietly on the edge of my bed and gazing at a small desk, not thinking of anything at all. That's an interesting clue there. Not thinking of anything at all. In a moment too short to measure, the universe turned over on its axis and my search was over. The small, pale green desk at which I'd been so thoughtlessly gazing had totally and radically changed. It appeared now with a clarity, a depth, of three-dimensionality, of freshness I had never imagined possible. At the same time, in a way that is utterly indescribable, all my questions and doubts were gone, as effortlessly as chaff in the wind. I knew everything and all at once, yet not in the sense that I had ever known anything before. Now that expression, knowing everything, is not the same as having some kind of access to what you might call knowledge, facts, material of that kind. In a sense, it is a radical unknowing that lets everything stand forth as itself. And like that green, small green, unremarkable desk, which suddenly lets itself, or suddenly she let herself, be present to it in a way that lifted the weight of everything that the mind puts out upon the world was lifted off. All things were the same in my little bedroom, yet totally changed. Still sitting in wonder on the edge of my narrow bed, she noticed that her sense of vision had changed. Released from all tension, ecstatically light she felt. She seemed to float down the hall. To look at her face in the mottled mirror over the sink, it's like, I better check. Who is this? The pupils of my eyes were dark, dilated, and brimming with laughter. With a wondrous relief, I began to laugh as I'd never laughed before, from the soles of my feet upwards. And then she talks about going back to her college in Ann Arbor, about a period of months there of a ripening and a deepening and a rolling on of this sense of the foundations falling away from the world, and wonder and gratitude at that fact. I had plunged into a numinous openness which had obliterated all fixed distinctions, including the one of within and without, of me in here and that out there. She found herself dancing along the street, running around like a kid, having a sense of what she calls a new kind of knowing, so pure and unadorned, so delicate that nothing in language of my past could express it. Neither sense nor feeling nor imagination could contain it. And it goes on at further length than we need to go into here. But she does come to an interesting conclusion. By the way, she had this experience, she had it checked in a certain way by Yasutani. Yasutani, she came to a retreat, and he found her to be very clear in the matter of very clear. Her clarity was great and sustained. But she says this interesting thing, and I'll leave you with it. She says that true attention, and remember Ikkyu, when Ikkyu, the poet and crazy, slightly crazy, unusual teacher, was asked, 16th century Japanese teacher, was asked, what is Zen? He said it is attention. It is attention, attention, attention. And then someone said, what is attention? He said, it is attention. There is no way past this question at all. It is attention. And what she goes on to call it is rare. She says true attention is rare. I just want to find the words for it here. True attention is rare and totally sacrificial. How interesting. Totally sacrificial. If we're going to enlighten each moment with attention, it demands that we throw away everything we have been or hope to be, to face each moment naked of identity, open to whatever comes, and bereft of outside guidance. This is a little like the rich kid with no britches, isn't it? Nor is the potential for pain to be underestimated, for now we come face to face with the radical fact that there is nothing, however dear, that cannot be taken from us from one moment to the next. Nothing, however sinister or horrifying, from which we will be permitted to recoil or separate ourselves. All the dreadful, mute suffering from which inattention has shielded us now will be seen and heard. Another name for such full attention is love. Not knowing, mu, love, but even something beyond the limits of what the word love struggles to name and contain is going on in this matter. So, in the radical unknowing of this pure attention, we are sacrificing ourselves, giving ourselves away. And after all, in every loving act, that's exactly what we do. We give ourselves away. So, this little word mu, this great gate of not knowing. The most astonishing thing about working with mu is that when it does soften, or rather to put it more accurately, when we soften and break open, there is no gate. There never was a barrier. There never was a speck of separation. It's no wonder that people spend a lot of time crying as much as laughing when this matter breaks open. And it's a kind of grievous joy. How could we have been separated so long? How mysterious that is, and how it also doesn't matter. It also doesn't matter. And yet it's like a kind of painful, beautiful fact that we are so crazy as human beings, that we live outside our very skins, our very wondrous bodies of being. So let this matter of not knowing, please take it up as the mysterious and rewarding matter that it is. It will save your life. It will restore your life. Thank you for your trouble.